Well, good morning. This is an update from week commencing the 25th of March. I was just chuckling to myself then when I was just looking through the notes that I made. A lot of the time as I'm going through recapping from the previous week, I tend to reread all the notes, which is a good idea, but today's different. I'm just going to literally go right reread them, so this is as much of a shock reminder to me as it is to you who've never seen my notes. So on Monday last week we got the environmental reports back on Wits End, so that had quite a few things on it that we weren't aware of, or things that it came up that it was like a flood risk. I had like a big round circle on with an exclamation mark on. Kind of makes you, it seems like hard to believe, bearing in mind that Wits End for me seems to be on a hill as much as anything else. It certainly doesn't appear to be what I would classify as a dip, so we needed to look into that. Monday was the first day at work that I moved back from into the main office. So where I work at the moment is there's an office with myself, Wend, Bev, and there's like a big meeting table, just so we can just have somewhere we're going to get, I think you could say, potentially less interruptions, maybe something like that, and also have a little bit more privacy when we need to talk about things that are not for general consumption within the office. But because Jess is gone, I needed to move back into the main office so I could give Dan a bit more support and a bit more advice and just be there for him. It wasn't the easiest of things to do. I had quite a fair few technical problems trying to set up Jess's PC, so left it with the same kind of log on profile, and then just tried to load on the emails in a way that I can still send out from my own email address, but still while keeping Jess's PC's basic profile exactly the same. But yeah, that really sucked up probably over half of my day because it just wasn't working as it should. Sometimes these things happen. It's the joys of being the in-house IT person. I must admit, I did feel pretty sad on Monday. I think the reality of not having Jess anymore was probably kicking in on that particular day. But it was time to move on for Jess, so, and obviously then time to move on for us. So that's it, all over. And funny enough, it kind of, feels like a revolving door one way or another, in that although Jess had left on Monday, even on Monday we'd started recruiting for not even one person, but basically two new people to train up. So it's a case of one out, you could say, and two in. That's probably indicates where we're at in terms of the philosophy on things at the moment, which in some ways seems a bit crazy, really, because if anything, I would say in some ways there's probably been, with all the changes that have happened within our main client, there's probably been less development works that have gone on. So I think that's probably going to hurt, if that doesn't have an impact on our end of year figures, then that will only be because that we will have increased revenue from other streams, which is the main thing that we want. That's the whole reason why we're taking, I suppose, on all these other people, is to free myself up and to improve the service levels, and hopefully then kind of use that as a way to drive more business in the business itself. Monday, so like I say, we interviewed a chap called Thomas who came over really well in his interview. Wend sent trying to, we've got, with it being April the 5th is on the horizon, that's wage review time, so we'd already been through salaries in terms of across the board, and when we took a different, last year we sat down and I sat down with everybody and had one-to-ones with them all, and then also discussed with them the salary review. This year we've taken a slightly different approach this year. So Wendy decided that she was effectively sending out an email that would let people know that their salary reviews, effectively any salary changes were what they were, and that was pretty much the final thing, and that email went out on the Monday. So I'll have to see how that one plays out, because it is a change in the way that things are done, and sometimes you just have to try something new, and I suppose it reflects more of the way that maybe the way that both Wend and I have had wage reviews done in the past. You know, certainly when I've worked for previous companies, if I think kind of like Layprint or Casper, in both those cases it was done by a letter. Personally, I was probably in favour of more of a letter going out the end of that week, but there are times when sometimes you just have to trust. The wage reviews is something that Wend has taken on herself, so we just have to trust Wend's judgment and see how things go. When on Monday finally decided that I would quit watching Man in the High Castle, because I just find that I'm not really looking forward to sitting down and, I used to look forward to sitting down and watching television at 9 o'clock and enjoying watching a box set, but every time I sit down and watch it, I seem to, certainly when I'm 3/4 of the way through, I'm pretty much falling asleep, which would suggest that there's just not enough action for me to watch it. So, because I don't know, we have two schools of thought. Well, I should say I'm different to probably a lot of people, in that when I'm watching any kind of programme or a film or anything like that, I don't want to have any kind of inkling of spoilers or anything to know anything that's coming up. Whereas Mac's totally different. He will watch things on YouTube or watch the best clips on it or whatever, and then therefore he ends up knowing what's going to happen in these programs before he even watches them, which I think is a bit of a puzzling thing to do. But at least on a positive note, on this particular instance, when I finally decided to throw in the towel, if you want to say throw in the towel on Man in a High Castle, that he was able to give an indication to tell us what the rest of the storyline was and how it played out. And to be quite frank, I think I'm probably pretty glad that I decided to throw it in, because it was, I don't know, it was just certainly would have even seemed daft to me. I'm really pretty into things like I don't know, I'm trying to think what the word is. It's basically whether there are multiverses, whether parallel universes. That's it. I couldn't remember the phrase there, but without giving away too much, that was kind of the premise of a lot of the storyline on it, and I know for a fact that that's not something that Wend would have been happy with in terms of explaining away the storyline. So Monday was also the day that I went out in the afternoon to meet up with Nick Brooks. Nick is my former employer, so I met up with him at Lim Services at the McDonald's, and we had a good chat. I think it was mainly me who was doing most of the chatting and just showing off some of the stuff that we've been doing in terms of the social media advertising. Nick was telling me about God, I'd say what he's for an over 50. He is. God, I tell you, he's like super fit. He was just telling me about the ultra marathon he just won, yeah, I mean he's proper hardcore. He did he ran the London Marathon once dressed as a West Cornwall pasty. I mean, running a marathon's hard enough as it is for most normal human beings, but then to run with a suit where you're obviously going to get baked inside, I think he's absolutely bonkers. But fair play to him, he really is super fit. He was telling me he's I don't know, retired. Retired, probably not the right way. I would say he's a consultant who consults when he wants to. I suppose that's probably the better way of describing it. He took risks, at the right time. He owns, I think, a big warehouse somewhere on the Wirral in Bromborough, and people rent that warehouse, and I think he's probably structured his finances accordingly, where the rent off that unit alone probably pays for everything that he needs to do in terms of the basics and stuff. So obviously then anything that he gets on top of that probably just adds to it. So fair play to him. He can go and do anything he wants, whatever it is. And I think on that particular day, I think he was going down and he was seeing his parents. But anyway, he was telling me about that they've just got a new puppy, one of these cockapoo type things. So they always seem to they look so much fun. Certainly everyone that I've ever met when I've been walking dogs down the field, they're always jumping around and they're so pleased to see you. They've got so much energy. Whether that would get tiring after a period of time if you had one or not, I don't know, because I don't have one, but it certainly doesn't seem to be a complaint of either Emily, who I know's got one, and Carl's got one. They don't ever really seem to have anything other than nice things to say. Possibly not the right dog for me. It's like here now that I'm looking across there, my two dogs who are both schnauzers, and they're like fast asleep on the couch, not even giving me a second look as I'm chit-chatting away to a camera, and that's probably better for me, because if I did have a cockapoo, it would probably be jumping up and wanting to be sat on my lap as I'm chatting away. But anyway, maybe that's a generalisation about dogs. But anyway, fair play to him, because that means that he's got a companion. Somebody can go out and walk some runs with him. So yeah, I'm dead pleased. I took my little Microsoft service, and that meant I was able to demonstrate some of the stuff we've been doing on video. And it kind of really came over to me just like how passionate I am about all the things that we're doing at the moment. I mean, I think Nick probably really struggled to get a word in edgeways. So that's good, I think, for me, because it proves to myself that it's not something I'm just doing for the sake of it. It's something I'm doing because I'm enjoying it. So on Monday, there was the trailer that Josh, who works for us, he's the videographer, he did his trailer for his Oz tour. So he when he went down to Australia, he spent 5 weeks going down I think it was the East Coast or something like that, from Cairns to Sydney. So that was the trailer for that, which was good. Finally had Rob, who worked for us, he was helping by breaking down the black server which had sold, flat packing it, so it was able to be sent out as in courier, and he put masking tape on and taped all the pieces so that the person at the other end can put the thing back together again as like a giant jigsaw puzzle. And he also did a lot of Rob helped me with the packing in the print room, because Darren wasn't well. I think his family had a stomach bug, and lots of people were off sick, so he wasn't in on that particular day. Tuesday the 26th, Rob was busy again doing other things in his kind of handyman role. So on this particular day, he was constructing more of the storage area within the office. The office at the moment seems to be looks very untidy, because we've got all these like A2 frames hanging around, and bits of print here. We had Ginsters had delivered a whole pallet of print into us, and obviously we're in an office, so you can imagine having an office that's full of with a pallet of print, and then other bits and bobs hanging around. You can probably understand how you can quickly go from an office that looks tidy to a bit from one that looks like it's just like full of crap. So any extra area that you can make, even be it it was kind of a dead space. We have some double doors, and then to the left hand side of it as you walk in, you can't really, we were just using it as some ad hoc storage anyway. I think I had a grey desk on it, which now Rob uses as his desk, and it just tends to be a dumping area anyway. So Rob was constructing a basic framework, or a stud wall if you want to say that, and then we used some graphic panels which we turned around to screen it off and create a storage or a cupboard area within it. So that was good. Again, super talented guy. Had talked to Bev and Wend about one-to-ones that are planned for next week, and ended up having an impromptu one-to-one with Bev at that particular time, where she gets to have her say and discuss things that she had on her mind, which is good. So that's like one down out of the 20 odd that I've decided to do. We dispatched out all the remaining. We did a challenging job for the Moto's community, Moto in the Community, which is the charitable side of Moto's business, and they've had a challenging job to do for one of these spinners where you put money in, and then like the 2p drops around and goes round like a spiral, if you want to say that. It's like a big collection box, and then goes round and goes faster and faster, and then drops down the hole. But having to create the artwork and the graphic that goes around it was quite challenging, to say the least. So all those were dispatched out. We had another interview in from another potential trainee, a guy called Jake, who is a friend of a friend of a friend. So it's maybe Elliot's girlfriend's friend's boyfriend or something like that. There's some kind of a friend through recommendation, possibly. I think this kind of illustrates the difference. So it may be we've set for the apprentices that we look at now, we probably look at like a higher level apprentice. So you can get apprentices at I think a number of different levels. Certainly maybe 2, 3 and 4. So we're always looking for a level 4 apprentice. So this is maybe somebody who's had really good grades at GCSE and really good grades as well at A levels. So kind of like they're getting distinction stars and A's and B's and that kind of thing. Possibly, I think Jake was maybe one who was more enthusiastic to just really wanted to. Maybe things haven't worked out for him potentially before on the academic side of things, and it is just looking really to try and get on somewhere where he can get. So his is more based on, I think, enthusiasm more than academic ability. So we interviewed him, and he interviewed really well. I think potentially when may have been a bit sceptical, but it looks like a really strong candidate. So that's good. Kat wasn't in the business; she was away doing first aid training. We seem to be, certainly this week that we're talking about now, there was a lot of people who were tied up. Both Emily and Lee were doing work on, I think ISOSH, which again is kind of like health and safety, like a deeper understanding level of training on the health and safety paperwork, like RAMs and that kind of thing. And the free course that Groundwork had run for first aid, Kat was doing that, I think partly because Jess had gone, and Jess was down as a first aider, so we needed to get the numbers up. I did a lot of amends up to the animation that we're going to be using on the Sign 24/7 website. Had a little bit of a crazy day on the We Deliver side of things, where again a random one-off company where some guy is shipping, I think it was something about 30 boxes of toy cars all over the world, like from, I don't know, USA, China, of all places. So we had boxes and boxes in the office. Part of my remit as well on the Tuesday is to pick up things like the IT side of things. So John on the We Deliver side had been looking for a new phone contract. So he's got a phone, but the contract that he was running out for on BT had finished, so I had to try and get another one of those, and that was a bit of a faff because I'd been onto the, let's say, Money Supermarket or anything. I looked at the best SIM only deals, and there was a cracking good deal, like, I don't know, let's say, I think it was 8 gig, unlimited minutes, unlimited texts for maybe 12 months or something along those lines at, I don't know, at £10, including VAT, so that's like about £8.33 a month. But when you try and run it through, I think it's because if you're trying to put it through as a business, it wouldn't let you do it, and it's kind of like, well, I don't know, it's just crazy. So we ended up having to put it through in my name, because it just wouldn't seem to. I think it's because it must run some kind of credit checks against particular addresses, and then maybe We Deliver wasn't on there, so it's just easier if it goes against a residential address. I can only assume that. So ordered a SIM card. Tuesday was also a bit of a crazy day on the, obviously we're going through at the moment the Brexit, and the government as a whole, or Parliament I should say, had a vote on 8 different options that were alternatives to Brexit, and Parliament voted down every single one of them. So every idea that all different people had put forwards, nobody was happy with any of the ideas, so it's just a complete mess at the moment. It's got that desperate to a point that the Prime Minister has now offered to, if she's put forward a bill to exit in a, I don't know, let's call it an orderly fashion, a bill that had been agreed with the rest of the EU members, and she's effectively said that if Parliament accepts that bill, that she'll step down as Prime Minister. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, if that doesn't illustrate just how desperate things are, then I don't know what days. But it is just, I don't know, it's just a total nightmare. Sherry had a long day on the Tuesday. She drives for We Deliver. She is my mother-in-law, and Wen's mum, obviously, and I think she was up at 6, and then she was going down to London, I think at the Excel, doing an dropping some stuff off at the London Excel Centre. I think she didn't get home till 8 o'clock, so that was a long day for her. Started watching, obviously finished doing Man in the High Castle, so Game of Thrones is only about 2 weeks away. So with Mac going away on holiday, we started watching the last season of the previous season of Game of Thrones, just so we can watch all those, so we can run it. So we can finish watching Game of Thrones the last season and then start watching the new season, or that's the plan. Although Wendy and I are still watching Afterlife with Ricky Gervais, which is really good. Wednesday the 27th was Mac's last parent evening as our oldest son, so we went to County High School, and yeah, fair play to him. I mean, really incredibly proud of what he's done for himself. So he maybe, when he moved up from primary school, primary school was really hard, I think, for Mac. I mean, even when he was there, we moved school for Mac from Hertford Manor, where his reading age was, it was just, I don't know, I suppose you could say he was the atypical late developer. I think that's probably how you could sum him up. So maybe he had to have extra help with his reading, and his he wasn't that great at maths early doors. So I think even when it wasn't for the want of trying to support him or trying to help him learn, done the same things with Broads and got completely different results. So I can remember even back in the day trying to explain simple maths tasks with Mac, where I might have had like counting it out with pencils and literally doing the things physically to try and help it engage in his brain. But since he's moved to secondary school, whether he's just matured or grown up that much more, but he really has proved that hard work, possibly over natural ability, has proven that you really can achieve. So all the teachers were saying was pretty much, what a great job you've done, and keep doing what you're doing all the way through the rest of your exams. So yeah, I'm really incredibly proud of what he's done for himself, and because I think hard work over everything else probably has a big indicator of what you can do. You can be incredibly bright and also be incredibly lazy and end up doing nothing. So that ability to be self-motivated and to do what he's doing, which is a massive amount of studying off his own back, that's where you do get the rewards. So fair play to him. Aidan and Robert on Wednesday had to go down to Exeter. We're having a bit of a nightmare at the moment, where we fitted some letters with a slightly different system, and the fixings are all these like three-dimensional letters that have been stuck onto bulkheads with Velcro, because the letters are only light. For some reason or other, the adhesive on, we had a change of Velcro about halfway through, and now the adhesive's failing on it, so the letters are dropping off the wall and then dropping down the back of kind of retail fixtures. So that's a nightmare. So at the moment we've got to revisit around the whole of the country, which is a total nightmare. It's one of the the big downsides. If you're taking installations in-house, then obviously anything that goes wrong, you have to sort those problems out with yourself. But on the flip side of it, if we have supplied these letters to somebody as an outwork job, then they would have to go around and do the visits for us, which would be then even more expensive. So I suppose that is a positive. The guys are still working really hard internally. The video guys are still working on the Accolade type video pitch, which illustrates the stuff that we're doing, so we're busy with that. doing further changes to we're doing the kind of like a practice social media campaign for a physiotherapist where we can use where we can help them and also try out the thesis on the Facebook advertising being good for their business. So we have to do amends to the site to track when people have clicked through from Facebook to the site. So we have to do things like create duplicate booking pages. So that's been good. I sent out the invite to everybody to let them know that I'd be doing the one-to-ones on my own this time round. So a one-to-one is when I sit with everybody in the company for maybe 10 minutes and just try and find out what's on their mind, both from a personal and a company point of view. I've given people the option where they can have the meeting with me alone, or maybe with myself, a choice of maybe Bev alone, or Wend alone, or a combination where they have like all three of us, for example. So I sent that out. Sat down with Bev on the Wednesday, just in general about our the upcoming changes, the impact on cash flow, and having to take money out of the business to invest in the changes that we're making at Wits End. So I had quite a long chat about future plans with Bev. Spent a lot of time supporting Dan Lloyd on some of the M&S schemes that we're doing at the moment. So we're at the certainly getting to the sharp end of doing the work for Marks and Spencer's at the Edinburgh airport, so there's quite a lot to do on that. I went down, picked up Brodie's passport forms into town, and When's filling them in, so it's again a little bit of a tag team work. So I've gone to the post office to go and get the actual forms, and When's actually going to fill them in. Finally sold my tyres on eBay. It's really frustrating. So I spent £860, I think it was, £860 on a set of brand new run flat tyres from a BMW. But on the roads that we've got with all the potholes on them, as soon as they crack over a pothole, because the tyres are the tyre walls, because the run flats are so strong and so thick, they're not as pliable. So what happens is the seal around the outside of the alloy then tends to break, and then that means that the tyre pressure then starts to seep, and as you're driving along, you could be driving down the motorway and it'll go that you've got tyre pressure loss. And we're not talking that the tyre's flat, we're talking that the tyre goes down a little bit. But it gets to the point where it's like, it's just annoying more than anything else. So I had to swap them out. But anyway, they finally sold. I mean, I can't really figure out why this is, but one set sold at over £200. I think it was maybe like 250, and the other one sold at 125 or something. So, I mean, there's negligible difference between the two. The only conclusion I can make is maybe one set, the set at the back and the set at the front are two different actual sizes of tyres. So I can assume that maybe the set at the back, because they fit a BMW and it's rear-wheel drive, maybe they wear out more and therefore there's less of them available in comparison to the front tyres, and that's maybe why they're cheaper. But the bottom line is, it's just rubbish that I've got hanging around the house, that we don't have the storage, we won't have the storage space at Wits End going forward for all this kind of stuff. So I just need to continue getting rid of it. So far that's the tyre sold, and the black server. The grey server, which looks like a gigantic telephone box, is still for sale. I've not even had any kind of interest. I think it's had about maybe 30 people in the country have viewed it. So anyway, I don't know, it's just going to that remains on eBay forever now until it's sold. So I think every week that's on there, maybe the price drops by a certain percentage till it's sold. So I'm just going to leave it on there. Mac was looking for Game of Thrones trainers, I think, for his birthday. I think that's what it was. Which are just going to show the importance of brand. Mac loves Game of Thrones. So they still like limited edition ones, potentially from, I don't know, maybe Adidas or something along those lines. So that's something that he wants for his birthday. Thursday was funny day at work. We were pretty much back more up to, felt more like a full quota of people in the office because Emily and Lee had finished the 3 days training. Spent quite a bit of time on Monday morning outside having a meeting, what was an impromptu early one-to-one meeting with Elliot where he needed to get stuff off his chest. So I thought that was probably about the whole of the morning gone, but if someone's got something on their mind, then I would far rather them always come and see and talk to me about something, because I can't, if I'm unaware, if they have a problem or something that's on their mind and they don't talk to you about it, then it's only the problem tends to then grow, and problems get blown out of all proportion. So giving them a chance to have that sounding board and to be able to talk about things, it enables me to know what's on their mind, so I can try and see what I can do to help, and also maybe give them good advice as well. Thursday, Darren has been going around profiling all the screens, which we have all these monitors, or I don't know, TVs, and he's bought a device maybe that costs £150. You run a piece of software on it, and what it does is it runs all the different colours through the monitors and makes sure that it doesn't now matter whichever monitor you go on in the office, they're all going to be within a certain tolerance, so that when you look on the screen, the picture that you see is the same colour and shade, which is actually quite a lot darker than I think all the monitors are being ramped up in terms of the brightness to make the screen look nicer. But they've now all been toned down a bit, so they look a bit duller, but it's one of those things where you just kind of get used to over a period of time. Thursday we also had the confirmation of the offer that was on our house, and just kind of like that it is sold subject to contract. And also I packed up and dispatched the tyres that had finally sold, wrapped them up with banded them together with brown tape, and maybe like in about 10 places around the outside, and then used some black stretch wrap to get rid of them. I mean, really big heavy parcels, but I think they maybe only cost me about £8 or something like that to send out, so that's good to finally get them out of the garage. A whole load more stuff to sell out of the garage, but at least to finally got some things out of the way. Also forgot to mention earlier on in the week, we wanted to, next stage for us in terms of buying Wits End is to get a survey done on the house. But after approaching the vendors there, she's away kind of like she was away all the next week on holiday. It must have been for Easter, so the people who are running this structural survey can't go in until week commencing the 8th, so we're a little bit kind of like on hold. But we did get back some information with respect to the flooding question they were asking about, and there's a railway line that runs adjacent to the property, and underneath where the railway bridge is, it's a low bridge, and how they've increased the height under the bridge is by like digging down into the road, so it goes down into a dip underneath the bridge, and water tends to in the past tend to collect in there, so that was where the flooding is. So it's actually on the road, not actually on the property, but further away from it. But even that tends to be that it was just because the council hadn't unblocked the drains. So yeah, it is a thought. There isn't actually, the property's never flooded. There is no flood risk. It's it's just one of those things that shows on the survey, but it's not really anything to worry about. So that was I don't even call it a relief. So Friday was another day in the office. All day long we had two candidates in, a girl called Ellie and another lad called Jake. So we've already got a Jake. So far we've got Jake, who works with us in the video side of the business. We've also got Jake, who's Elliot's mate, who came for an interview, and then we're also interviewing another Jake. So potentially we could have an office that had 3 Jakes in, which for me is like the biggest. It's bad enough having 2 Dans without then having a Dan. We could potentially have 3 Jakes. Back in the days when we set off, the early days, we just used to have the first name. So I'm Mike at 24-7.co.uk, whereas now everybody has to come in. So the Jake that we have isn't, although you can email Jake at 24/7, it will come through. He's actually, his proper email is jake.johnson. So that means that then obviously, should we then get another Jake, that we don't have to, that it means that he will then have to say his full surname, his full email address, because at the moment, if you do have a Jake one, it will just go through to Jake. So it just means going forward, anybody who if there is a second Jake, then you have to use his full name. Yeah, it sounds confusing. That's because it is confusing. Gave a reference for Ben, who he's following his dream to become a wildlife cameraman down in a wildlife filmmaker in Bristol. So he had a reference came through from the BBC, so that's really good to see that he's actually getting his foot in the door. I think it's for maybe a job as a runner or something along those lines. So I gave him the most glowing reference that I could do positive. So if there is any kind of doubts in his mind, I'd like to think if somebody asks for a reference, then they must therefore be serious about offering them a job. So let's hope that's good. Friday night, watched back-to-back episodes and finished watching Afterlife, which although it has some dark themes in it, I would definitely recommend it as good series to watch. Enjoyed watching that. Watched a film as well, I can't think of what it was. The Accolade pitch video finally was complete and sent off to client today. I don't know how much time we've spent on it, but we're talking like a massive amount of time internally. I would say probably, I don't know, probably a couple of 100 hours worth of time within the business, something like that, for something that it's just really been done as a demonstration piece or as a showcase piece. The Signs 24/7, it seems to be coming to the end of quite a lot of things. Signs 24/7 website is pretty much finished and ready to go, as is the animated video. So that's something that we can now start promoting as an individual channel, if you want to call it, as a specialist signage company. So we'll be doing it, running nationwide Facebook ads on that. So that's pretty much ready to go next week. The interviews went well. The girl that we interviewed, I think her name was Ellie, I think it is. So she was offered a position which she then duly accepted later on. She seems super bright, so we were then having and Ellie and Ella and an Elliot, all of which obviously would be shortened to L, no doubt, so that's going to get super confusing. And we also ended up making an offer to Jake as well, who's the guy that we saw earlier on in the week, I think Tuesday, I think it was, that his interview was at. So this is the guy who was more about enthusiasm than pure academic ability. So we'll see how these things play out. I think Ellie can't join maybe until she's finished her studies in June. Jake, I think, can start sooner, although at the moment our biggest problem, as much as anything else, is where to fit people within the office, was we are full and run out of space unless we change maybe desk formats or something like that. That kind of leads nicely on to what happened on Saturday. So took the decision to take the manufacture of building our own bespoke desks to give to our Rob in house, just so we can get that get the thing done and get that more controllability. So crazy as it sounds, we're having to build, I want to build bespoke desks, quite rustic looking, so maybe fabricated from what you would think were scaffolding tubes as the main framework for it, and then with pretty rough and rustic type wood. So we're going to look to build those ourselves. Hopefully that's something that we'll keep. So there's maybe 20 plus desks that can be made, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why make your own desk, because they can be built just the way that we want, so on a screen off all the cable management, what's inside, and we also want to find a way to build in risers on the desks, so the desks that you can buy that are out there are all so that you can write on them at a particular thing, but then when you put a standard Commodore Garden monitor on them, the monitor's too low, so at the moment everybody's got kind of riser boxes of some form or other to make the screen sit a little bit higher. You could in theory have monitors that were on arms, but I know Wen's definitely, we tried them once for Carl back in the day, and Wen's really not keen on their actual look at them, just thinks they look clunky. So the good thing about having a split level desk is that you've got almost like extra storage, so you've got the desk at the normal height, then you're going to have like a higher bit that the monitor can sit on, and that means that therefore you've got like a double stack area of the desk. So going to be interesting seeing how they plan out, and whether we can actually build something that looks good and that's also really functional for us and unique. So that's going to be interesting seeing how that plans out. Saturday took both the boys into town to get Mother's Day cards, which I know sounds kind of last minute, you could say. Certainly felt last minute when we went in all the shops, and the card areas with the Mother's Day cards were quite bare, shall we say, so there's less choice than there would have been if we'd have gone the week before. But that kinds to be how I'm running my life at the minute, so everything's done just when it needs to happen. Everything's done on time, but not just in, I say just in time, I suppose that, it probably is just in time. Got quite a few cards from Clinton's, I have to say, but even that came as a bit of a shock, because normally the cards there seem to be really expensive, and yet I don't know, we got the 2 cards and it felt like, I don't know, it could have been you got 2 cards and maybe got the third 3, but I wasn't aware of any kind of offer of what it was, but it wasn't the usual shock to my wallet that it normally is. Spent quite a lot of time this weekend looking at Facebook and Twitter myself, and actually using it as a user. I hadn't actually spent any time whatsoever so far on Twitter. Obviously spend so much time on TikTok. I actually have to limit the time that I spend on it because I just find it that addictive scrolling through all the short, like 1 minute long clips. Instagram I watch a lot of, look at as well, quite enjoy that. I don't know why, possibly because it's maybe picture related with captions on it, I quite like that. Facebook is more longer form comments and what have you, so yeah, spent quite a bit of time on that. Hoovered out the Sirocco with the handheld Dyson, but I don't know, it's just not as good as what I would have hoped, because it ran out of battery, which is kind of ironical for a Hoover. The problem is that you have to put the thing on full suction power to suck all the bits of dirt out of the thing, and I think it kind of overheats the motor. I think that's what it is. It cuts out for heat more than anything else. Also, managed to read, I forgot to mention this on Friday, the Sirocco broke down, or it kept on immobilising on Friday at work, so start the engine, but then the engine would then cut out, and so the immobiliser kicked in. Not quite sure what the reason is for that, but came home, tried to find the spare key, couldn't find it. Turns out the spare key had actually left the main key at the garage at Scott's, and been driving the spare key for all this particular time. I'm hoping it's going to be a battery problem, but it's something else that I'm looking at. Saturday, when we went to pick up the other key, and sure enough, thankfully, put the key in the ignition and the Sirocco's now working, but obviously just having the one key is not a good thing to do. I sent quite a few emails to Ben on Saturday, just sharing with him some ideas. I was thinking of some thoughts on how I could get him maybe further up the chain or getting more opportunities within BBC. Not that he's doing a bad job at the minute. I think it looks to me like he's got this job as a runner on Springwatch, and run is quite I guess he's just kind of like a helper, if you say, I think that's what a runner does. He just kind of like hangs around and gets things, or it's kind of like the bottom rung, if you will. But at least he's in there, and he's actually getting in there, and he will get his name known within as somebody who's now worked for the BBC. So I think that will then help him get further other positions within there. I spent quite a bit of time doing that, and I don't know, you could say, why invest time in people who no longer work for you? And pretty simple answer really, because I want to help people. It makes me feel good that I'm doing the right thing by them if I can help them out. It's not just something that I talk about, that I want to help people even after they've gone. That's something that I actually act on and do. Is it for selfish reasons? Yeah, it does make me feel good. It makes me feel like a better person. I don't know, maybe I'm a better person, but anyway, it feels like the right thing to do, so not something I'm going to change. Sunday was Mothering Sunday, it's the 31st. Another one of those days where the dogs try and get me up early, but because the hour had moved forward when they did start their woofing at what would have been in British winter time would have been 6:15. That was actually 6:45, but I still went down and had an extra nap on the couch. Boys handed over their presents and cards to their mum went, which was nice, and went out for Mother's Day breakfast brunch at the Hayhurst, which had been, funny enough, Wendy had seen as an advert on Facebook. And I was to be honest, I was pretty annoyed when we went to the Hayhurst, because I don't know, I think it's the only place I've been where you see an all-day breakfast and it doesn't actually have baked beans on the menu, and it's kind of, well, what breakfast doesn't have beans on it? I really don't know. So came round and they asked, and they had black pudding on it, which I know from experience because I've been there and actually heard. I know I say that I don't want black pudding, and I've been at the tills when other people have ordered breakfast and said that they don't want black pudding as well. But then, you know, I think if you're at a restaurant and you've got a couple of people who say that they want beans with no black puddings, then as a chef or as management, you should come back and go, well, okay, people are asking for that, so therefore that's a need. And you know, you're at Davenham, literally someone could hop into a car and go down to a supermarket and spend all of £2 in, and then you get what, a pack of four cans of beans, and then they're happy. You know, what's the difficulty of that? So that leaves me really frustrated. I mean, that kind of probably sums me up a lot in the ways that I can get really that riled up. And then, you know, after that point, we wait, whatever, we did have to wait maybe 20 minutes, half an hour for the breakfast, which is like, well, some of this breakfast is pre-prepared, and even in that period of time, surely there was no sauce. I said, can I have some brown sauce? Couldn't find some brown sauce. It's like, well, you know, why? Surely brown sauce, breakfast. Some people like red sauce, some people like no sauce, but it's not like I'm asking for something that's unusual. You'd like to think that would be easy to get hold of. I don't know, lack of attention to detail, and I don't know, pretty poor for me. My parents came, we came back home then and watched Josh Edwards, who's released his first Australian trip, 40-minute long film, first episode on his Oz trip. Yeah, amazing. We actually all sat down, closed the curtains, stuff like that. Watched it on the the big telly, or streamed it from YouTube onto the main TV, and it really was great. He was walking around a rainforest, and then it showed like all these, obviously the humidity. The humidity in these rainforests looked unbearable to me, like really uncomfortable. I know I would really suffer with it. But then you've got all these beautiful looking water, like beaches and sea and what have you, and you think you'd just be able to dive in, but you can't dive in because of jellyfish that would sting you. And then you can't go in a lot of these creeks and what have you, because there could be potentially crocodiles in there that would probably take a fancy to you. So, and then there's like all kinds of spiders and snakes, and I mean, he's definitely a lot more adventurous than maybe I would. So it's going to be, I'm really looking forward to now Sunday, because it means it's something I can look forward to, and spend a lot of time doing what I can to try and comment on the videos, to try and raise awareness of them, and just because he needs support, and obviously it's because I actually wanted to do it. Did a post on Facebook as well on the Sunday. Kat, who runs the DPC podcast, I'd listened to it earlier on the week before. I know, and she'd really been talking about, you know, how her thoughts on Mother's Day were. So I'd put a thoughtful post on it and just basically said to people out there, take some time out to think about the people who maybe didn't have a mum, or maybe a mum who'd lost a son or a daughter. There's people out there on Mother's Day. Whilst it's a time of joy for lots of people, it's also a time for like a double-edged sword, where it may be a little bit of a harder day, and for people to not to just give people a little bit of a thought. And so I wrote that down as a post on Facebook, and I think for me that's where Facebook fits in for me in terms of it's you know, it should be used as a platform to do good, where you may be putting on a comment or a longer thoughtful post about things, and you know, and I also spent the time. I'd also noticed within the feed that one of the friends who I don't really see very often these days, her mum had died. I think it was possibly even last week, so I made sure that I went on her profile and left a message and just saying that I was really sorry to hear about her loss, and you know, just wishing her all the best for the day, because I knew it was going to be a hard day. Certainly makes me appreciate the time, you know, that I'd got with my mum. Did something different that I hadn't done before, so we went out like I do on most Saturdays for a walk with the dog, but this time I asked Brady to take a picture of me and my mum because it was Mother's Day, and I posted it out there just saying that, you know, how much I appreciated having my mum. The other sad thing that's a bit of something that I probably not really I don't really speak a lot about, but I do have a brother, and it beggars belief. I hadn't really asked my mum this because it was a bit of a sore subject, but I asked whether she'd had a Mother's Day card off him, and he didn't, and it's kind of unfathomable for me how, you know, my mum's done absolutely nothing wrong, but through one way, shape or form, possibly I suspect due to the relationship he has with his wife, he doesn't send my mum a Mother's Day card, and it's like, it's not a difficult thing to do. I mean, Mother's Day for me, being nice to your mum is something you can make a lot of effort in. I think that's one of the things that I put in the post is, you know, make the effort with your mum, because let's say something happens to her and she goes and what have you, that you're only going to what you're going to be left with just regret for the things that you didn't do at the time. And certainly that isn't something that I'm not going to have any regret for those things. I'm going to make damn sure that I don't have any regret for putting the effort in with people or doing something nice. You know, I definitely don't want to be having any regret on things that I haven't done. Sunday also, when my parents came round, they said goodbye to Mac. He's going off on a 4-day trip to Berlin. Very, very lucky lad, but he's doing that as part of his history studies. So I took the dogs for a walk with my parents on Brody, which was nice. It was just nice to be able to chat. Although I have to say the walk was very slow to the point where it felt like we were going backwards at some point. But we actually had loads of time on our hands because my dad likes watching Liverpool with me, so Liverpool are on the television an awful lot these days with the title run in. So we were playing Tottenham, and it was a really, really edgy game. Liverpool scored first. Tottenham equalised with about maybe 25-30 minutes to go, and then it was like really, really nail biting. And Liverpool forced a winner in the 89th minute with about 4 minutes worth of additional time to be played. Oh god, yeah, severe stress. So they've now gone back to the head, 2 points ahead of Man City but Man City have got a game in hand. So it really is, with 6 games to go. Oh, it's definitely going to be really, really stressful. But I don't just. It's just good that they've actually got to this point, that they're within. They've worked so hard. I want to believe that they can win it, and I hope they do. But Man City are such an awesome side. They literally look like unbeatable, and it's crazy now where Liverpool's, you could say, historical arch rivals Man United were actually hoping for them to beat Man City because it's been played at Man United's home, so that's kind of like looks like one of the toughest games in Man City's run in. So it will be really funny because there'll be certainly a lot of people in the Man United crowd who will be cheering on Man City against them because they just hate Liverpool that much. So yeah, I think that's maybe couple of Saturdays away. So yeah, watched, sat down with Mac away. We watched for Mother's Day, I bought herself crazily the Bohemian Rhapsody DVD, so we sat down and we watched that together last night while I did a bit of work. And yeah, here we are again with another mad week into April. So that's basically the first quarter of the year gone, and possibly by the end of the next quarter, which we'll see is halfway into it, we're now on the run up into the move to Wits End and everything, all the chaos that's gonna bring. So yeah, thanks for listening, and hope you tune in again next week. See you soon. Thank you.